Hey there, so welcome to this episode of the show, which is aptly about the subject of sleep and why sleep is more important than you probably realize for both fat loss and for also building muscle. Now you might be saying, well, why is it so apt, Simon? I'm awake, I'm listening to this, so why is sleep so important to talk about right now? Well, it's because that I am very fucking tired. That's why sleep is of a pertinent issue right now. Now, why am I so tired? And why am I no doubt going to fluster many words across this podcast, fuck up many times, but still, even though I'm half asleep, I am bringing you some valuable content. Well, last night was UFC 236, and I decided it would be a fan-fucking-tastic idea to set my alarm to wake up at 3 a.m. to watch the two main events. Now, it won't surprise you to know that yes, I did wake up at 3 a.m., but also I fell back to sleep quite quickly after waking up, but I did manage to watch the two main events live. Now, after waking up at like 3, falling back to sleep, maybe kind of waking up around 4 and then kind of watching those fights. Okay, they were worth it. They were damn good fights, but now I'm really fucking feeling it. And at the moment I'm in a fat loss phase. So it seemed quite a good time for me to talk about why sleep is actually important during a fat loss phase, but also during building muscle phases as well. And what are some of the things I'm experiencing right now, today, as a result of my stupid fucking actions, deciding to fucking wake up at that ridiculous time. But also the types of things that you'll be experiencing and you'll be feeling if you're not prioritizing your sleep. Now, why is sleep most important? Let's go and look at where it sits in the hierarchy of all the things that are important. Now, we all know that energy balance, calories in versus calories out, is the most important thing that you need to be focused on. Let's get that out of the way. After that, you want to be thinking about protein, you want to be thinking about fat, and you want to be thinking about carbohydrates. So we're kind of talking about macros. Obviously, protein being the most important of those three, but macros is essentially the next building block that we're looking for as we progress up our hierarchy of our pyramid. Now, all that has to be underpinned by adherence, because if you can't stick to the calories and in versus out, then you're fucked. So you need to think about adherence along with all that sort of stuff. So think less about keto diets, paleo diets, whatever it is, intermittent fasting. What diet can you stick to? But this isn't about that. But so sleep often gets overlooked because it's not as sexy as, oh, what supplement can I take? Can I take this fat burner? Or what if I get this like perfect mealtime strategy around my workouts? Or if I eat 6 meals a day versus 4 meals a day, surely that's going to have some form of metabolic effect where it's going to increase my metabolism. What about if I train fasted versus fed? What if I train at this time in the morning versus that time in the evening? All of these things are a little bit more sexier than saying, well, actually, mate, just go to bed a bit earlier and you'll make more progress. It's not as sexy. But unfortunately, for those people that don't think it's as sexy, it is actually the next most important thing, whether you are building muscle, losing fat. Sleep is the next most important thing after calories. And that's even comes before things like what you eat. And I know there's be the clean eating brigade will come and say, well, surely it's about, not all calories are created equal and all these sorts of things. But when you absolutely have to boil it down to what is the most important things and what order should they come in, then this is the order. That's not to say that what you eat is not important, but if you had to absolutely put your cock on the block and say these things are the most important and this sequence, then sleep would be coming next. Now, there's lots of different reasons why sleep would be important. So let's break it down into fat loss and building muscle / exercise. Now, for fat loss, one of the key things that happens is you've got these hormones flowing around your body for all different sorts of things. A lot of gurus and things will tell you it's all about hormones. You've got to go on my hormone diet or fucking whatever it is that's going to try and manipulate your hormones. Now, actually, obviously, you've got all these hormones. That's not a fallacy. You have got all of these hormones, but in order to try and directly influence them, it's almost nigh on impossible. You basically just stick to the basic things like calories in versus calories out, losing weight, dropping body fat, exercising. Those sorts of things are what are actually going to positively impact your hormone balance. You don't actually specifically go in and do something weird and magical that actually changes these things. But sleep impacts your hunger hormone. So you have this hunger hormone called ghrelin, which basically is a signaler for hunger. So the higher or the more ghrelin hormone you have, the hunger levels increase. So if you're obviously on a diet, you want to keep those levels down. Now, if you don't sleep, for a lot of people, in the majority of cases, that hunger hormone is going to increase. It's going to increase your appetite, it's going to increase your hunger levels, make you want to eat more, and therefore make that day where you've had a lack of sleep the night before really difficult for you to stay on plan. And I'm sure you've all had those situations. Maybe even you've gone out and you've had some alcohol, you've had a poor night's sleep. Even though you think you've had a lot of sleep, it's actually poor quality. You wake up the next day, you're feeling really tired, and your ability to stick to your diet is through the fucking floor. You can't really even contemplate sticking to what you've prepared it almost, or sticking to those calories. Tracking my fitness plan has gone out the fucking window. All of that sort of stuff just becomes that bit more difficult. And there is a little bit of research. If you read the book by Stefan Guyenet called The Hungry Brain, it goes into some of these concepts in a little bit more detail. And I've mentioned that book a couple of times on the podcast. It really is fucking good. Go and get it. Now, he'll talk about that a lack of sleep initiates this part of the brain where you're more inclined to take risks. And this was done for some research with people in terms of their financial investments, but it also translates across to your diet and how you view food and how you manage your hunger and how you manage what you eat. So the more sleep deprived you are, you become this kind of diet risk taker, for want of a better phrase. And you're more likely to eat food and overeat on food that you know is both delicious and unhealthy. You're just going to have these barriers come down, these obstacles, your willpower is going to come down, the barriers are going to come down, and you are going to eat food that you know, and you're going to likely overeat on it, that is going to it's going to taste fucking good, and basically it's unhealthy. In terms of, okay, unhealthy being the phrase that it's junk food or whatever you want to call it. So there is this high probability that with the appetite going up, hunger going up, with your barriers to control and your willpower coming down, that you're creating this perfect storm where you're potentially making it very difficult for you to stick to your diet. Now, it's obviously not impossible. You can still, if you've got that willpower, if you've got that control over your diet, you can still stick to your calories. That's exactly what I'm doing over the course of this day. I'm not going off track with calories. I've just kind of had a word with myself and managed it. But if you're not really in tune with those things, and maybe you're new to this whole process, this can be super, super difficult for you to do. So prioritizing sleep is really going to benefit you in this scenario. Also, there is also a chance, if you are not sleeping very well, you get this lack of metabolic inflexibility. Now, that's where your body switches from, using fat for fuel to using carbohydrates. So if you're doing like intense sprints and things, your body really wants to use carbohydrate for that. If you're sleeping, your body doesn't really need that to use carbohydrate for that. So it's going to be more about using fat. And it's important that your body is able to switch between those fuel sources as and when it needs to. Now, that's probably a whole subject for a whole different ball game. But if you're not sleeping, your ability to flip between those two things becomes impaired. And there is some research to show that if you are sleep deprived throughout the week, then you burn more muscle rather than fat when you are losing weight. So there was this study where people were on a fat loss diet, and the people that got consistent, good quality sleep lost more fat, less muscle, to the tune of like 80+% came from fat. And in the other group, it was more like 80% came from muscle, which you don't really want if you're trying to protect those gains, which again is why sleep is super, super important. Now, obviously, like, one little one-off thing where you go out on the town of the evening, you live it up and you go on a bit of a bender and you come back at 4 a.m, something like that, maybe that's not such a bad issue. But if you're consistently having poor sleep night after night after night after night, then that's when that sort of chronic effect is going to start to take impact on your ability to make progress when you want to most. So now let's flip over to looking at exercise, so the gains in the gym. Now, clearly, less sleep means more fatigue. If you're fatigued going into the gym, how likely are you to have an awesome fucking workout where you absolutely smash it? You're not really going to have it, are you? You're going to have a shit workout like I did today. I felt like a fucking zombie walking around the gym, and it kind of was probably not worth me even being there. So you have to make that kind of judgment call as to, if you have had one off night where you've had a poor night's sleep, you're due to go to the gym next day. Do you go, or do you decide maybe just to go for a walk or something like that? So you're keeping your activity level up, but is it worth it to try and slog out a workout? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But again, if you are in that chronic situation of night after night of shit sleep, time and time again, don't expect your workouts to be freaking awesome and you to make a ton of muscle and for you to make a load of progress in the gym in terms of your physique, because it's probably not going to happen. Because let's face it as well, if your workout is subpar, you're walking around like a zombie like I was, are you going to burn as much calories as you thought you were? So it's going to impact your calories in versus calories out equation. You're going to also have this like less training stimulus, because you're not going to train as hard as if you were fully restored, fully refreshed. So you're not going to train as hard. Less stimulus means less adaptation, less muscle. Again, these workouts aren't going to be as effective. Then on a more like general exercise point of view, let's look at the scenario. Look at the scenario. You've been out the night before, or you've had like a full week. Let's say you've been at work and it's been long days. You've had poor night's sleep. You're bed late, up early, consistently for 5 days. You then, how likely are you to want to go and do your step count, how to reach your step count target, or to just naturally move more? You're going to be more lethargic. You're going to want to just sit around, just kind of recharging a bit. And it could therefore have an impact on your overall step count, and then again on that calories in versus calories out equation. And it quite literally could take you out of a deficit if you're not moving enough, your workouts aren't as effective, and you've also got that other added problem that I talked about earlier with appetite going up, hunger going up, those risk barriers coming down. All of this is creating a perfect storm for you to not adhere to your diet and not adhere to your energy in versus energy out equation. So sleep is super, super important. And like I said right at the beginning, it's thought of as not very sexy because you all want fat burners, you all want fucking to take testosterone boosters and shit like that, which has you pouring out money, making it fucking reign supreme on supplement companies, but you actually get no benefit from it. When actually, if all you did after your macros was focus on fucking sleeping, then that would be more advantageous than all of these supplements. But hey, nobody's perfect, including me. I know you thought I was perfect, but I am not perfect. I'm very tired right fucking now. Maybe if you're watching the video of this, you can see how fucking tired I am. But hey, I'm all about bringing the content. Now, you might say, okay, well, how much sleep should you get? And that's a good question, because the adult recommendation is about 7 to 9 hours, but it's quite an under-researched part of the whole nutrition spectrum. So we don't really know what's ideal for everybody. So the key thing to think about will probably be that it's going to be highly individual to you. Now, I would just advise you to have as much sleep as you require in order to feel restored, in order to feel energized, and to wake up every morning feeling good to go. For some people, that might be on the 6 hours. Some people, it might be like 9 to 10 that they need. You got to find where that scale is. So, do things like make sure you go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time. So you're creating this nice rhythm. And then if you need to, think about, looking at, turning tablets off, phones off, making the room nice and cool, making the room nice and dark, all of these sorts of things, so that you are optimizing your sleep and you're trying to get good quality sleep at the same time. So that's of primary importance. So whatever number of hours is right for you, it's the quality of that sleep that's super important as well. So just to recap then, the importance of sleep should not be underestimated. After you've got your energy balance equation right, after you've got macros right, you then want to be thinking about sleep. Do not start going off and thinking about supplements, thinking about testosterone boosters, fat burning pills, whatever is taking your mind into this sort of crazy thought process. Come back. Think about the basics, think about sleep, because sleep is going to help you manage hunger. It's going to help you manage appetite. It's going to help you battle through those days when you maybe feel like you want to eat the fucking world's biggest fucking chocolate bar or whatever it is that you enjoy. You also want to make sure that sleep is there because it's going to help you have effective workouts. It's going to help you in the gym, making sure you're getting the right adaptations, making sure you're pushing yourself hard so that you can build muscle in the most effective way possible. So make sure you are focusing on sleep. It is more important than you realize. Just don't overlook it. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, despite me being very, very tired, probably fluffing a lot of fucking words along the way. But hey, like I said before, I wanted to get you some content, so it's important that I recorded this today. Now, if you did enjoy this episode of the show, come visit me on Instagram at iron_paradise_fitness. Tell me what you thought. Tell me that despite your sleepiness, Simon, you sounded fucking amazing. You sounded sexy as usual, and I really enjoyed the information you provided. You can send me that message. Cool. Now, if you also want to find out more about fat loss, more about building muscle, then I suggest you head over to ironparadisefitness.com, which I put a link to in the notes so that you can check out articles, you can check out podcasts, you can download free guides, free ebooks about how to calculate calories, free training programs, a load of free shit basically, because I'm a nice fucking dude. So go over to ironparadisefitness.com and check that out. But for now, all I'll say is thanks for listening, keep living the lean life, and I'll see you for the next episode of the show where I'll be a little bit more well rested and not so sleepy.